Okay, so now we're going to begin talking about the brain, and we're going to begin by discussing some of the major regions of the brain. Now there are 6 of them listed right here. These are directly from your book. And if you look here on your note sheet, it asks for the major regions of the brain. Well, these are the major regions. So cerebrum, we've also got cerebellum, diencephalon, midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Okay, so those are the 6 major regions of the brain. Okay, and so I'd like to show you those regions first on a PowerPoint slide where I'm explaining them, and then I'll actually show you on an actual physical model where these 6 major regions are. Any place later on in the notes packet where it asks major brain region, you should be picking one of these 6 regions. So if we turn to our PowerPoint here, and we look, you're going to see this stuff up top that kind of looks like really thick spaghetti noodles all put together. So all of this here, this entire portion here, is going to be cerebrum. Okay, so it's the largest portion of the human brain. Okay, now this brain, actually this part would be the front part of your head. Okay, and this right back here goes on the back part of your head. And so this little part that sits down below, it looks like maybe it's made up of thinner spaghetti noodles. Okay, that is called the cerebellum. Alright, now what this image is showing you is it's showing you here, actually way down here is part of the spinal cord, and then there's this portion that goes up deep into the middle of the brain. And so as the figure is looking at this part, we've pulled out this portion here that's deep in that middle part of the brain. Okay, and so up top you have this region called the diencephalon. In the middle, in green, right here, you're going to have what's called the midbrain. Okay, and then right here in blue, you're going to have what's called the pons. I remember its structure because it's got this portion right here that is kind of bulging out a little bit, and then as it tapers and gets thinner, okay, then we get the portion that's called the medulla oblongata. Now here in this darker pink is medulla oblongata that you can see here. When it switches to spinal cord, that's because this region has actually exited your skull. So everything from here up is located inside of those skull bones. Okay. Now note on this image you can see part of the pons, you can see part of the medulla oblongata from just the outside, but the midbrain and the diencephalon are going to be buried up inside cerebrum, so cerebrum is going to be surrounding them. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're looking at a plastic model of the brain. Hopefully you should recognize that this part all up here is that big spaghetti noodle part of the brain. This here would be the front region of the brain. If we turn around at the back, okay, this is where we're going to see the back region of the brain. Okay, so the thick spaghetti noodles up on top, okay, all of that is going to be cerebrum. Okay, you see here that we have these thinner spaghetti noodle things here, and these are both cerebellum. Okay, those go at the very back bottom part of your skull. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to open this up and we're going to start to see the diencephalon. Okay, so buried actually deep up inside this region. Okay, up in here is going to be diencephalon, very deep up inside. Okay. Now midbrain will be the region, it's a very small region between diencephalon down to the pons. Okay, so midbrain is right here. And then the pons is this bulging structure up here. It's all of this. Okay. All right, and then down below, underneath the bulge, down to the bottom will be medulla oblongata. Okay. And so hopefully you can see, as we saw in those pictures before, that whenever you're just looking at the brain in this way, okay, that you can see a bit of the bulge. Oh, let me move that down where you can see it here. Okay, you can see a bit of this bulge up front. That's pons that you can see. Here's medulla oblongata. Back here, let me show you right here, this darker brown is cerebellum. Okay, and then we get to cerebrum up here. So when the brain is put together in this way, you cannot see the midbrain or the diencephalon very easily. If you get really up close here, okay, you can see a little bit of the midbrain right up in there. Okay, but it's pretty difficult. And then you can see a little bit of that diencephalon poking out there, but it's the pons and the medulla oblongata that are very obvious. Okay, so the other thing I'd like to point out is that there is, so here's some images to help you practice learning these. There's also a set of activities here that will help you learn functions of these major regions. I would point you to page 463 in your text. It lists these major regions and also gives you some general functions. We'll go a little bit more into depth on each of these functions, but this will get you started thinking about those functions of the major regions. Now something else that I also want to point out here is there's some general terminology that you need to remember. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is number one here talks about gray matter, and so I just want to remind you, we discussed this in chapter 12, but there's a part in your notes that says white matter contains, and so for the most part what it's going to contain is myelinated axons. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, myelinated axons. While gray matter, it's mostly going to contain cell bodies of neurons. Okay, there's going to be some neuroglia there and other things to help you out, but those are the main things that you're going to see. Okay, so the cortex of the cerebrum, which is going to be the outside of the cerebrum, that is going to be made up of gray matter. Okay, and so to go here to a PowerPoint slide, let me see if I can see this here. What we've done here is that we have taken, this right here is a chunk of the cerebrum. So basically we've taken a little chunk, and this is going to be the surface up here, and this is going deep into it. And you can notice on the outside, cortex is going to mean outside. You can see that it's a darker color. So this is the gray matter that is cortex. Okay. And then underneath it, you're going to see the lighter colored stuff. And so this is going to be the white matter, which means it's myelinated axons at this portion of the brain. Okay, now we also have a few other terms. If we look here on your homework, we're talking about these terms gyrus, sulci, and fissure. Okay, and so you need to know these terms. And so if we look on our PowerPoint slide, we can see that a gyrus is essentially a bump. Okay, so this is just going to be a bump on the surface of the brain. A sulcus is a shallow groove. And then a fissure is going to be a deep groove. Okay. And so let me show you on the brain model where you would find these terms. Okay, so what we're looking at here again is the cerebrum. Okay, and so what you may notice is here's a shallow little groove coming across here. There's a whole bunch of them, all of these shallow little grooves. Okay, so each one of these is going to be a sulcus. Okay, and then the bump portion, okay, so here's that bump portion, okay, that will be a gyrus. A fissure, on the other hand, see how deep the probe can go in here as compared to one of these shallow, this sulcus right here, okay. So this area where it can go really deep inside, that's going to be a fissure. Okay, but some of these very shallow areas are just a sulcus. Okay, and so then the last thing I'd like to point out is we've already talked about this image here where we've got the cortex on the outside, which is gray matter, and then we've got the white matter that's deep. Okay, this image isn't showing it here, but if we were to go deep inside and find another region of gray matter on the inside, which we will call those nuclei. Okay, so gray matter cortex on the outside, white matter on the inside, and then deep inside, if there's more gray matter, we would call those nuclei.